Alright guys, I wanted to do a little video on the spreadsheets I'm working on. These kind of, they're my attempt at complying with the UP and BNSF train makeup rules. Kind of wanted to go over how they work a little bit. Um, so I guess we'll start here on the UP. This section here gives you your maximum EPA, which I believe is equivalent powered axles. So each locomotive, UP has a little worksheet that tells them what each locomotive has what the equivalent powered axles is for each locomotive. So it's not the actual amount of axles that the locomotive has in most cases. So like in the case of this ES44DC, it has the equivalent powered axles of 11.5. I believe an SD70 has 12. Damn it, I keep selecting. There we go, yeah, so 12. And, on and on. So this allows you to select how many units in which part of the train, and it'll tell you if you're in compliance or out of compliance depending on the type of train that you're building. So for our purposes, we're going to build a manifest. Zero this all out. Let's say we want it to be 10,000 tons. So we enter our tonnage in here. And I know that I want, let's see, we'll put it at 4 units on the head end, 2 on the rear. And you can see we are out of compliance on the manifest. The maximum we can have on Mojave on the head end is 36 EPA, and we currently have 46. So if we take that down to 3, that gets us under our 36 EPA, so now we're in compliance here. Problem is our TPA, this is the total, this is the tons per powered axle. So think of it kind of like HPT, except it's the other way. So the higher this number is, the more underpowered your train is, basically. And these are numbers that I got from the other Mike on the depot forums. These were to the best of his knowledge. So the maximum TPA for Mojave sub is 160 on a manifest. So you can see we're exceeding that. So we need more power in this train, and we can't put it on the front. And if we put it here, you see we can't put it on the rear either. We can have a maximum of 24 EPA on the rear DPUs. So you go back to 2, and we're going to put 1 in the middle. And you see everything is in compliance here. And our TPA is about 145. So this section over here will tell us where we need to put the mid DPUs. So the easiest way to do that when we're making a train in our train maker upper here. So I'll just go ahead and delete this. This was a train I was running on the server earlier. Just do ES44s. And we'll grab some freight cars. So this tells us here what the trailing tonnage of our mid DPUs needs to be. So this is calculated out by how much EPA is on the rear and how much is on the front, and the tonnage of the train, and our total TPA. So we want our ideal situation, we'll have 4,167 tons behind our mid DPUs, or DPU in this case, which will leave us with 5,833 tons on the head end, trailing the head end. So, and then here we have our range. This is another calculation that UP has in the rules. So it calculates an acceptable range of how far forward or backwards in that tonnage you can move mid DPU. So in this case, and so this here is just calculated from this and this plus and minus, so we can go with a maximum of 5,000 tons trailing our DPU and a minimum of 3,333 tons. So in this case, we'll just grab some freight cars. I usually like to select this group here. That's already too many, so we were looking for our ideal situation is 4167. Excuse me, no, we want 5,833 behind the lead locomotives. Let's grab some more center beams because everyone loves center beams. Damn it. I always do that. Delete those. You can see we're pretty close to our ideal placement. We're going to go ahead and throw another ES44. In the middle there. And then our total tonnage, after we put more cars on behind that, should add up to 10,000 to match what we've done in our calculation. See, I've got too many there. And of course, this is all great if you're just building a random train. So that's pretty close. We'll leave it at that. But if you're working out of the yard, it's a bit more of a pain to go through all this work, and I totally understand that. Set up a train like this. So go ahead and place that here at Bealville. And I put it a little too close there. Open that up. Okay, just get this all going. Thought I hit full. Maybe I didn't. Definitely want this full. So now, according to the best of my understanding, this train is in compliance. With UP rules. I'm going to go ahead and confirm that these are set up properly. Yep, okay. I'm going to put a 15-pound reduction on this before I kick off the handbrakes. And I'm just going to leave this whole thing synced up. Just take it to notch 4. I'm going to come off the independent here slowly. Gonna have to bail it off since the automatic brake's set. Let it come up on the amps there. Release our brakes, and it'll probably just sit here at notch 4, and I'll have to give it another notch to finally get moving. At least when I was playing around with a similar train. One more notch. And you see I'm not even bothering to look at the coupler tonnage because I know this train is very stable, if that makes any sense. Now again, these rules here are for Mojave on the EPA. You can select this here and select Alhambra and LA sub. From what I see, it doesn't specifically call out in the UP rules for Mojave. It just says for grades exceeding 1.9%, so that's Mojave basically, and I don't think there's anywhere on Alhambra or LA sub that does that we have modeled anyways. So this allows you to, so you can select, if you select Alhambra, take that back down to 0, we can put 4 units on the head end here and we're still in compliance. Go ahead and give it another notch there. I could have given it more. I could have been all the way notched out by the end of this siding here if I was on top of it. Yeah, so if anyone saw the recent DPU fencing tutorial that started in the same spot here, same tonnage, same amount of engines, but that train was set up 4x2, which is not in compliance with the rules of either UP or BNSF. And so that train took quite a bit more finessing, and it required a fence to keep it from breaking. So I can go all the way to 8 here and it's not going to break. And then just to idiot check it, we can look at this and we're down here at 300,000 kilopounds. Typically breaks up at like a little over 400,000. So that's the gist of the UP calculator. This part down here was another thing that the other Mike mentioned, was the maximum coupler tonnage. For a standard coupler on Mojave, he believes was 5,700 tons, which kind of matches what I found in the sim. I found, much over 6,000 tons on these, like Cajon or Mojave, on the grades. And if you're conventional with your power, you're liable to break the train if you have to stop and then start on the hill. So you take that tonnage and you, I'm not sure how applicable it is up here on the head end trailing tonnage. You can see we're exceeding that by quite a bit. Wait a minute, I gotta go back and change that around. There we go. Okay, we're not actually exceeding that, never mind. By that much anyways. The thing is, our mid DPU is handling some of that tonnage by shoving it. So that's not all just on the head end here. So I'm not sure how to kind of calculate that out. But that kind of gives you, an idea of kind of what you're aiming for, I guess. And down here we have the equivalent dynamic brake axles. So it's basically the same thing as up here, except the maximum. There's another chart or table that UP has that gives you the equivalent dynamic brake axles, just like the equivalent power axles. So you can select how many units you got, and it'll tell you if you have too many or not. And of course there's just a chart down here that, it's not actually that complicated to do this without an interactive thing, but you can see 4 units up front. There's too many dynamic brakes if you got 40 units up front, and you're allowed to have them up there for power. You just can't have all 4 units with the dynamic brakes cut in, so you have to cut some of those out. So that's it, I guess, for the UP side. The BNSF one's pretty similar. Go ahead and delete that. Not paying attention. We were up here. Okay. So similar to the UP, I guess for the most part, for calculating the power that a train has, BNSF likes to stick with horsepower per ton, which is what we're all pretty familiar with in Run 8. But they still have RPA limits, which is basically the same thing as EPA. BNSF assigns different values than UP, but it's rated power axles, so same thing. So, one ES44 is 8 rated power axles, even though the actual locomotive has 6 axles. I believe the SD70 is actually the same on BNSF for some reason, at least according to the table I found. So we have our RPA restrictions down here, just like you have EPA restrictions. This here, on Mojave, if your train is over 8,000 tons and you're heading eastbound/southbound, which is up the hill here out of Bakersfield basically, you are limited to having no more than 8 more RPA on the head end of the train than all the DPUs combined. So if I put 3 up here, I'll put 0 there. How did this work? I believe it was 4 by 2, yeah. So if you go 4 by 2, you are out of compliance. You have 16 more RPA on the rear of the train than the head end. Or excuse me, you have 16 RPA on the head end more than the rear. You can only have 8 more on the head end. So if we cut this down from 4 by 2 to 3 by 1 by 2, we are now in compliance. You can see it with an empty unit train, we're out of compliance with this setup here. And we're out of compliance on the rear DPUs for an empty unit train, but we're not really interested in that right now. And also, I have a note here. These asterisks. From what I've been seeing on Seligman now, there is a limit on. You can only have 8 RPA, I believe, if in your DPUs if you have any empties in between the head end and DPU, or between the 2 sets of DPUs. So if you do that, so let's say normally you would have a 3 by 2, but now you have empties in the train, so you build it 4 by 1. So you only have 1 DPU on the rear for 8 RPA. So the head end versus DP RPA, we are out of compliance. We have so a standard BNSF train can only have 16 more head end RPA than total DPU RPA. So you can't build it 4 by 1 either. BNSF doesn't use TPA here. I kept this calculation here because these trailing tonnage calculations use this to get their values. So you can kind of ignore that. And I don't know if BNSF, I didn't see any formulas to come up with this like the UP had, but I figure if it works for the UP, it should work for BNSF as far as figuring out your optimal tonnage placement. So anyways, yeah, you can see we can't build a train that has more than 16 RPA more on the head than the total DPUs. So basically that would leave us with doing a 3 by 1 by 1, and we are now in compliance on everything except the head end power on a empty unit train. Um, so this here only applies if the, like I said, if the train is over 8,000 tons and it's going east or south on Mojave between, um, I think it's basically Illman and Summit. So so it'll still flag this if your tonnage up here is below the. I'm trying to remember the condition to create that again. There we go. So it'll flag this even if your tonnage isn't um, above 8,000. I'm sure there's a way to make it not do that. I'm not that good with Excel, so. And then you can see, anyways, we are out of compliance on our head end versus DP RPA total. And then the same thing, we have our dynamic braking, our rated dynamic brake axles. Same thing, it's in the BNSF chart what each locomotive is rated for. As far as total dynamic brakes, they're the rated dynamic brake axles. So it'll tell you, and then it's obviously got another table here to let you know how much you can have in each position of the train depending on the type of train. So that's kind of the gist of how this works. So we're going to go ahead and build another train here. 10,000 tons, and we're going to do it 4x2 like was in the fencing video, and you can see we are out of compliance for Mojave for BNSF because we have too much RPA on the head end versus the rear. Elsewhere in the system, on the other, and this also applies to main 2 on Cajon for us. It's main 3 in real life now, but the steep main, if we are ascending that 3.4% grade, this applies there too, but pretty much nobody does that. So I basically just put it there for Mojave. Yeah, let's, you know what? Move that up there. I'll delete that guy and put a BNSF leader on there. So we are now 4x2. Fully load that. So you can see it's the same exact train, just with that mid DPU moved up to the front. Better put my throttle back in idle. Again, I'll get myself a good set here. And this time I've got the kilopounds open because we're going to be knocking on that, and I'm pretty sure I'll break this train in half because I'm not going to bother fencing it here. So again, I'm going to come out to notch 4. See, same tonnage, same HPT. Kick our handbrakes off. Go ahead and ease off the independent. Release the automatic. And again, we got the same power and tonnage as the last train, so we're just going to sit here at notch 4. And I don't know if I already pointed this out, but another thing we can't do, we can't put 3 on the head end and 3 on the rear. This should be giving me an out of compliance. I see what's going on. These asterisks here, I think they messed up the calculation. Okay, that's what happened. So I'll have to figure out a way around that. But yeah, you can see, so we are out of compliance because we the maximum DPUs on a manifest or in a modal is 16 RPA, and we've got 24 with 3 locomotives. So although it would probably take off just as nicely as our mid DPU train, it would not be compliant with the rules, to my knowledge. So now I've notched up, and we can watch it just tickle the limit. I think I saw 407 there. There's no way I can notch this up anytime soon. So we're still touching 400 here. Yeah, screw it. I'm gonna go ahead and just fence it here. Just go all the way to 8 on the rear. Oh wow, and that was still very close to breaking. Anyways, yeah, I hope that helps you guys use this spreadsheet. There's definitely more stuff I could probably do with it. There's all sorts of different rules that I'm not very familiar with, but it's kind of fun to learn about it.